Hi everyone, and welcome to Efficient Gaming. Today we're going to be covering the Witcher Monster Slayer again, and more specifically, as we're getting closer to release, we're going to be doing a video on XP strategy. Now there are a few different elements to this, and I'll run you through my ideas behind each. We're going to be looking at a couple of videos while I talk, just so that I can go through the points that I'm explaining with some examples. Because we are not yet released, the first thing I wanted to point out is that if you have a Google phone and you've got the Android App Store, you can actually pre-register for the game, and they're going to give you a sword, which my understanding is going to give you an XP boost. So, pre-register for our free-to-play location-based AR RPG on Google Play Store. Start your journey to become a Master Monster Slayer the moment the game launches. By pre-registering, you'll receive the Kaer Morhen Steel Sword, which increases experience points gained from killing monsters by 10%. This will be added to your inventory on release day to help get you started as a newly trained Witcher on the path. Now, everyone who has already started playing, I believe, based on the information that we've seen from support, should also be getting this sword. So don't worry if you start playing one day before because you're in New Zealand and you've got pre-release access. And don't worry if you've been playing the game because you're invited to the pre-release Google beta. You will still be getting this sword as far as we're aware. So that's the first thing to look out for. You want to be pre-registering for the game so that you can get this sword. Now, the next thing that we are going to talk about is where we get our XP from and the best way to get it. Now, I'm going to play you a couple of videos that sort of show us do a normal monster battle. This first one, we're fighting a Carnage Necker, and you can see that we're doing the battle pretty well. We've made our perfect hit reflections and our perfect critical hits. We do the whole battle pretty much perfectly. We don't miss a dodge, everything is perfect. We finish the fight, and we're rewarded with a decent amount of XP. Now, it's not the full amount of XP. We get our 100 base for defeating the monster, we get our 25 for getting the perfect critical hits, and we get the 25 for getting the perfect defense. But we're missing the last little bit that you could get, which is the 30 for completing the fight in a time bonus. So the next video that we're going to look at should have that time bonus. Now, this one is showing that even it's not worth completely racing through the battle, because if you see here, I missed that first perfect defense. We got the critical hit, so I'm just sitting here waiting for the time when we can do the perfect defense just before we finish the fight, because it's worth spending an extra 2 seconds just to get that guaranteed, if you make the perfect defense, extra 25 XP, because if you get that, obviously it's more XP. It takes 2 seconds, and because we were so quick at the battle, we were also able to get the 30 XP for the time as well, even though we waited that about 2 seconds or less just to wait for the perfect defense before we finish the battle off. Now, I've got another example of that here. So this time we're fighting a ghoul. So fight, we get the perfect critical hit, and we wait. He's about to attack, we do our perfect defense, and we finish him off. Now this should get us our full 180 XP for this encounter, because we did our perfect defense, monster was defeated, and we got our perfect critical hit as well. The next one we're going to look at shows that obviously if you encounter higher level monsters, they are worth more XP. So this is a spotted owl ghoul we've come across. We're going to use the appropriate oil to defeat it. And again, we have a pretty good battle here, and our nice slow hits. I don't think that was quite a perfect defense, but that one was. And we've got our perfect critical hit there, so we're in line to get at least 150 points. Now, this one also demonstrates another good point, that if you use the appropriate oil, you also get a bonus 20 XP. And because this monster was in the rare category, it's more difficult. We've got 250 XP base for defeating that one. Now, this one, is again a more difficult monster. Again, we're in the legendary category. Now this one, because it's a difficult fight and we're using potions, we just want to make sure that we beat it. We're not too much worried about the extra XP, because if you make a mistake then and you don't defeat the monster, then you might lose your potion or whatever else you've used in the battle. So we're just going through and beating it the best way we can. We've got a couple of critical hits, but I don't think we've got any perfect hits. But we finished the monster off. And at the end, we've got 600 XP for defeating a legendary monster. We did get our perfect critical hits for 25 extra XP. We didn't get a time bonus. We didn't get the perfect defense, but we did get 20 XP for using the proper oil. So the next bit we're going to look at is Nemeton based. If you do a Nemeton, then there is no requirement to do a perfect critical hit or a perfect defense on every single monster. As long as you make sure that you do one of each throughout the Nemeton, you will get the XP for that. So over the 3 monsters that you fight, as long as you've done a perfect defense or a perfect critical hit on one of them, you will get the XP for each of those respectively. So Nemeton XP can be more beneficial than just doing monsters. So if you come across any Nemetons, then it is worthwhile doing them. So you get your base 100 XP for each monster that you defeat, and there's 3 monsters. For clearing the Nemeton, you get a base 250 XP, and if you make a single perfect parry and perfect critical hit on any of the 3 monsters you fight, you don't have to do a perfect parry and a perfect critical hit on each monster. You will only get the bonus once throughout the whole Nemeton. I think it'd be better if they gave it to you per fight, but we'll see if that changes once they've released it or in the future with some future changes. But at the moment you get 100 base XP for each monster that you defeat, as well as the 250 base XP. So you can get up to a total of 600 XP for defeating an easy Nemeton, and the ones that spawn on the map without baiting are just the easy ones at the moment. Again, we'll see if this changes post-release, but at the moment that's what we're looking at. So next I want to look at a couple of other ways that you can further increase the XP that you're making. So that's sort of the most that we can get. You only ever get XP by completing quests, which are something that you're going to do anyway, so there's no point focusing or going into depth on the XP that you get from quests, or defeating monsters on the map or Nemetons. And we've discussed both of those and the best way to get the most out of those. So if you're not afraid of spending some coin, then there are some other ways to enhance the XP that you're going to get. So the first one is with the experience scroll. So the experience scroll boosts the experience you get by 100% for 30 minutes. So obviously if there's an area where you know is particularly dense with monsters, if you've already been out a few times and you've worked out a good route where there's usually monsters, obviously it's not the same every time you go out, and I'll show you some of my routes later to compare what a good route is compared to just a normal walk into town and how different they look on the map. If you've got a route that you know there's usually monsters on, or maybe if you're a passenger in a car or on a bus and you're going around a lot of different places where you know there's going to be monsters spawning, it could be worth putting on an experience scroll to maximize the benefit of the experience that you're going to get from that. Now this can be used in conjunction with a summoning scroll. Now this is more for if you're sitting at home, because obviously the whole idea of Monster Slayer is that you go out and you slay monsters out. But if you've got no monsters around you and you're not worried about spending some coin, you can get a summoning scroll which will summon at least 5 monsters to you. Now it says it summons 5 random monsters, 4 common and 1 common or rare. I haven't actually used this yet. We will cover it later in a video, but I would really expect that it's not that difficult for a summoning scroll to give you a guaranteed rare, considering you're spending coin on it. So I'll see when I use mine, because I've been gifted one from a level up, what it gives me, but I would have thought there's not really that bad if they could just give you 1 guaranteed rare out of that. So yeah, I'm not so sure about that, but that is another way that you can spawn more monsters to you. The last one is a range scroll. Now this one's potentially more useful if you're just walking around or if you are a passenger in a vehicle. It could help you to reach more monsters. Now again, you can use this in conjunction with the experience scroll, or you can just use it by yourself. It's a lot cheaper purchase than the other ones that are 200 each. This one's only 80 gold. And again, we'll cover this later. I haven't got any of these at the moment, but it was going to increase the range on the map by 150%. So the circle that you normally see on the map, you'll have a lot bigger area where you can encounter monsters, and that can help you to encounter them quicker without having to walk down small paths. If you're in one road, you might be able to reach ones across at the other road. It might just help you be more efficient with your monster slaying. Now, in saying that, there are lots of different ways you can play the game. Now, if you're focused on getting XP, the best way to do it is to go out and just play Witcher for Witcher. Don't worry about your other games at the time, especially if you're using an experience scroll. You really just want to be focused on Witcher. So this here is the first example of a general walk that I do in town when I play games like Pokemon and Wizards Unite. Now, there's with one small amendment. So the normal route into town would be pretty much straight from my house into town and back. The small amendment we've got here is we went via a Nemeton. So that's not normally part of the journey. But as you can see, it's pretty normal. We walk into town. We do a couple of minor amended loops with a few deviations, but it's generally walk into town, do loops, walk back home. This one's us going to the shop, where you can see we walk into town, we do a loop, we go to the shop, we come home. This one here is a Witcher Monster Slayer exclusive walk. So you can see I start and end at home. I literally go where the monsters take me, and with a general preference of going past the Nemetons that I know are near my area. So I'll start walking towards the Nemeton, and if I get super sidetracked because there's a bunch of monsters, as long as I still make it to that Nemeton, it doesn't bother me. So I've gone up towards the Nemeton. There was a bunch of monsters around, so I ended up going around the back, around some back streets, and then crossed back over my path, across towards the other Nemeton, and then ended up doing quite a few bigger deviations from the normal path and loop. Just follow the monsters. The monsters are where you get your XP from. So if there's a bunch of monsters spawned in an area, or if there's a particular rare one that you might want to go get, they're worth more XP, and it fills out your bestiary, which is also another goal of the game. So you definitely want to be, for the most efficiency, you want to be following the monsters. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into the many different ways you can get XP and the many different ways you can optimize your XP gain. So hopefully this video has given you a few extra ideas of how you can help to maximize your XP gains. As always, give it a like and a subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. I hope you're all as eager for the game launch as I am. You, because potentially some of you might not be playing yet, and me, because I'm very much looking forward to the new quests that they're releasing. As always, stay Witcher, and I'll see you next time. Bye.